Hi everybody, it's Luke from Foot Tech, just me today, and we are talking about how much is too much when it comes to football training sessions for children. Something we get asked quite a lot, certainly on social media, so I thought today it'd just be worth going through some of the general points, because the big thing and the big takeaway from this is that there isn't a one rule that fits all when it comes to this sort of stuff for children. They're all different, and it can depend on a number of different factors, and things like age come into it, interests, friendships, all sorts of different things. But hopefully today, some of these general points will just help parents out there that are maybe worried that their child is training too much, or maybe worried that their child isn't training enough. So these points should help, but as we always say, just drop us a message if you do need any further info specific to your children. So the first thing I want to discuss is the balance between fun and burnout. Kids obviously need to enjoy their football, otherwise they're not going to want to play football anymore. That should go without saying. They don't want to feel that they're too pressured and that they're overworked, essentially. And that's what can happen sometimes when you expose them to too much structured training, too much pressured training, where they might just lose their passion a little bit for football. Now, that's not for all kids. As I said before, some kids might thrive in those sorts of environments, and you've got to watch that for your child. But the things to ask yourself are, is my child excited to go to this training, or is it starting to feel a bit like a chore for them? Okay, even if they're in environments at a high level, maybe they're on development centres, academies and whatever else, if they're not excited to go, that can have damaging effects longer term, certainly for their participation. So it's then deciding what to do there. The training itself, is there too much overload for them? With the very young children, they don't want to be over instructed. They don't want too much stop start and just be bellowed at for an hour by a coach giving them too much instruction. It just overloads their brains. Too much stop start, not enough free play. If children are exposed to too much of that style of training, particularly in the younger stages, then yeah, you probably don't want to expose them to that 3, 4, 5 times a week, compared to other training that's maybe a bit more relaxed, maybe a bit more free play. Certainly at Foot Tech, for Foot Tech parents listening to this, that's the ethos that we try to have, and the philosophy that we try to have is giving them enough instruction but not over instructing, allowing them time for free play whilst we're guiding. So this is the balance that you need to strike, because too much of the other stuff can lead to burnout a lot quicker, particularly if they're exposed to that style of coaching and that style of training 3, 4, 5 times a week. If they're doing that, if they've got a session maybe that is like that, and that's once a week, but then maybe they're doing 2 or 3 sessions that are a little bit more relaxed, a bit more free play, then yeah, you might strike that balance. But the big thing is, are they excited to go, or are they starting to see it as a bit of a chore? And you'll be able to really look at that objectively with your child, even if you really want them to go to these other sessions. If they're not enjoying it, then that's when burnout's going to happen a lot quicker, or boredom, or both. So that's something to certainly consider when it comes to the style of training that you're exposed them to. Balance it between the fun and the burnout side of things. Next thing is, it needs to be child-led. As a football coach and a dad, I would love nothing more than for my girls to be absolutely obsessed with football, but we're not quite there yet. So for me, they like their football. They come to our sessions once a week and they enjoy that, and it's been led by them. But I'm not pressuring them to go to an extra 2 or 3 sessions, whether it be with us or a team or what have you. They like their training, but they don't want to train every day. So I'm not going to push that. I'm not going to add another session to their week because I want them to get really good at football and fall in love with football. I know that if I allow them to lead it, then perhaps they might want to add a session in times to come because they've enjoyed that football for an hour a week and they want to do a little bit more. But if I pressure them now, that's probably not going to happen. So it needs to be led by them, and it needs to come from their own motivation, their own desire to want to train more. Because children's interest in football or in anything, it can ebb and flow. And so if you've pressured them too much and you're trying to get them to 3 or 4 sessions a week because you really want them to improve at football, but their motivation for that is lower than your desire, then they're probably not going to want to do it. Whereas if you let them lead it, and maybe you do start with an hour a week and just let them enjoy their football, that's when you might be able to start adding another session or two as time goes on. We had a great example of this for a little boy that started with us. I think he was only 5. We had conversations with his dad all the time where he enjoyed coming to that session, but he wasn't obsessed with football. And his dad at one point was getting a little bit worried because a lot of this boy's friends were becoming obsessed with football and wanted to train 2-3 times a week, but this little lad wasn't. But we had conversations with his dad to say, look, just take a step back. The fact that he's here doing an hour a week of physical exercise in an environment where he's socialising, he's learning from other grown-ups, and just getting all the benefits of just physical exercise, forget the football. See it as that for now, and the football might come. And lo and behold, a couple of years on, that boy has got the football bug, and is wanting to do more now. So I wouldn't mind betting that if that dad had really pressured his child at that younger end, that he'd probably not want to play football anymore. So there's that to bear in mind. There'll be plenty of parents listening to this that want nothing more than their child to be obsessed with football and want to do 3, 4, 5, 6 training sessions a week. But the reality is that sometimes that needs time to grow and time to develop, and you can do more harm than good by pressuring them. So in terms of training more, if your child is interested in football, motivated, and they want to do it, then yeah, facilitate that. Still be relaxed about it, but facilitate that. If they're saying they want to do more training, brilliant. You know, it beats being on the iPad or what have you for another couple of nights a week. So yeah, if they're wanting to do it, fantastic. And then it goes back to what I've said before. The type of training that they're going to be doing. Is it something that's going to be enjoyable for them, or are you putting them into an environment where it's not as fun? So yeah, if you've got that child that is motivated, wanting to do it, then facilitate it, but it needs to be led by the child. One of our friends is in a very fortunate position that his boy is obsessed with football and wants nothing more than to be out playing football every single day. When his dad gets home from work, he's there with the ball waiting for him, wanting to get out. He goes to 2 or 3, 4 sessions a week and plays matches and stuff. Brilliant, but that's being led by the boy. It's not being led by the dad. Okay, so that's the thing to bear in mind. Who is leading this? Who is motivated? The child or you? You need to factor in time for rest and recovery. So their bodies are still developing, just like us. And if we go to the gym, our bodies need time to recover from that. If we're playing sport, our body needs time to recover from that. And children are no different. They might want to train all the time, brilliant, but you also need to factor in some time for rest and recovery, just like adults, like I say. So, and it's good for their overall well-being as well. They might be obsessed with it and wanting to be out all the time, brilliant, and 4 or 5 training sessions a week. They love to do it, but just factor in some time for rest and recovery, because they might be obsessed with it now and might love doing it that amount of times per week now, but that might quickly diminish when you're a few months into that and they're just tired all the time. So if they want to do it, great, but do factor in that. It might be that you use your half terms and your school holidays where you do have a week or 2 of no football at all, or it might be that you say every few weeks you're going to knock off a couple of sessions just for that week and just allow them to play and go be with their friends, whatever it might be. But just factor in that rest and recovery. Is your child getting enough downtime to recover mentally and physically? And I know with kids, it's like they've got endless amounts of energy and so forth, and oftentimes they do, but still they're developing, they're growing, their brains are developing and stuff, and too much overload for a consistent period of time, it's probably going to lead to that burnout that we spoke about before as well. So do that, use your school holidays, take a week off every now and again. Don't feel like you need to have them doing it every single day for months and months and months on end, because it's probably going to do more harm than good in the longer term. So yeah, that's more for the parents listening to this that have got children that do want to train X amount of times per week and are loving it. We've spoke about this before, but we talk about the diversity in physical activity. What I mean by that is looking at multi-sports and things like that. Now, I am all for children doing different sports. I think athletically it's a good thing for them, good thing for their overall motor development, motor skill development. But, and this is a but, we often do talk to parents about this, whereby they see the benefit of their child doing different sports, but ultimately the child doesn't want to. The child just wants to play football. So with that in mind, if you've got a young child that just wants to play football, they're not interested in that additional tennis session every week instead of a football session, or a basketball session, or whatever it might be, then again, be led by them. If they're loving their football and they want to do an extra football session instead of that basketball class, fine. Whatever that means, and reverse that if you're a parent listening to this that's got a child obsessed with a different sport. As I say, it can be a benefit to do different things. Hopefully your child's PE will make up for some of that as well. If they're getting decent access to PE in primary school, that might make up for some of this. But I do think that if they are interested in a different sport, then perhaps having a couple of sessions per week of football, but then doing a boxing session or a tennis session, rugby, whatever it might be, is going to benefit them, because that can be a release. So if you're a parent listening to this that feels like, no, I need my kid training 4, 5, 6 times a week, but they're saying to you, Mum, Dad, I quite like tennis, then facilitate that, because that tennis session might just be the little bit of a release that they need to help them with their football. Obviously, there's the athletic improvements that can occur, fine, but putting that to one side, that extra session, it just gives them a chance to take their mind off football for a bit and do something a bit different that might be a bit more relaxed for them, where then they take their football a little bit more seriously, but they've got this thing every week that is a bit more fun, there's no pressure there, and they can just go and enjoy it, and it's different kids, different coaches, what have you. But I think that's something to bear in mind. If we have kids that are saying to parents, I want to do different sport, then making them do 5 or 6 football sessions a week at the expense of that other sport is probably going to do more harm than good. If you've got a child that is obsessed with football, wants to do 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions a week, they're not interested in other sports, then fine, facilitate that. And at some point, it might be that you introduce a sport further down the line when they're a little bit older. We see that sometimes, where as the kids get older, they might just start taking an interest in other things as well, in which case, fine, maybe drop a football session and get them into something else. But that would be the way I'd approach that with the physical diversity side of things. Is your child getting enough chance to play other sports if they want to do that, or unstructured play if they want to do that? So bear that in mind. You've obviously got to factor in school, family life, social life as well. Again, we've probably got parents listening to this that's maybe wants their child to be the best football player and wants them to go on to bigger and better things. But if that is at the expense of their school stuff, if that's at the expense of nice family activities that can benefit them, going back to stuff like rest and recovery, and their social life, playing with friends, then you need to strike that balance and think about what damage it might do longer term. Kids need a well-rounded life. It can't just all be about football, particularly in those younger ages, primary school years. It can't just be all about football 7 days a week, especially if they're not wanting to do it. That's the other thing, going back to being led by the child. Maybe there could be some combination there. Maybe their social life does revolve around their football. Their friendship circles are all playing football all the time. Fine, brilliant. But if you are making them train every week, they don't really want to do it, and then it's impacting school and friendships and things like that, then you need to just reduce it. You need to reduce it, because it's not going to be good for them in the longer term. Does the amount of football training they do leave enough time in the week for the other important things in a child's life, which is things like that, obviously the school, family relationships, social interaction? These things are massive for them, not just now, but obviously in the future. So is the football harming one of those three things or all of those three things too much, and in which case then you need to start looking at the balance. And an example of this in a different kind of ways, we had a child last year who was only 4 and had been asked to go to trial at a Premier League club, and then got put in one of these satellite centres that they have here, there and everywhere. The child had to travel in rush hour, will probably have been, call it an hour there. They will then train for an hour and then travel an hour back. Now, in that example, particularly at that young age, you've got to ask yourself, is it worth it? Okay, what are they getting in that 1 hour that they couldn't get elsewhere? Okay, particularly at 4 and 5 years old. So you've got an hour's travel time, which isn't going to be, it's dead time essentially, and then you've got the hour back. So you've got 3 hours out of your night, including the hour for the training time. Would it be better for that child's well-being to go to a more local session, even if it's not at a higher standard, but go to a more local session that's a 10 or 15 minute drive, train for an hour, 10 or 15 minutes home. They've then got more time for family interaction, schoolwork, and possibly seeing friends. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, is that this is what you need to bear in mind. Look at the whole picture. It can be great that a child's been asked to go train at this club or that club, but is that going to be at the detriment, based on what else they've got going on in their week? Is that going to be at the detriment of the other things that are so important in a child's life? So bear that in mind, the stuff that might fall by the wayside. Again, if you've got a child that isn't that interested in training 3, 4, 5 times a week, but you're forcing it, they're going to miss out on all of that, what I've said there, and then they're probably going to want to not participate in the longer term as well. So bear all that in mind. So big thing for parents to think about is the role of age and the development stage of your child, and what role that can play when it comes to looking at training for your child, and certainly how much training that they're doing. Younger kids, in our experience from doing this now for a long time, they seem to react better to things like unstructured play, free play, encouraging coaches that are there to guide, for a bit of guided discovery as opposed to overcoach, sessions that are of the right level of intensity. So they're working in, but they're intense in an enjoyable way, as opposed to over instruction, drill based, coaches screaming at kids for doing things wrong, massive overloads of information, stop start, and all that stuff I spoke about earlier. So it's looking at your child, what age are they at and what development stage are they at, where are they at physically and emotionally. Let's use an example of, say, a child that is in, maybe ready for an academy, maybe on ability is ready for an academy, whereby they might be exposed to more intensity, they might be exposed to more pressure, on trial obviously. Even if your child is ready for that in terms of ability, are they ready for that emotionally? Okay, what development stage are they at? Are they ready for that sort of environment? Because even if they're good enough to be in there, but emotionally they're not ready, it could be better to hold off on that extra session up there every week, because emotionally not ready, and it might lead to burnout, it might lead to not enjoying it, and so on. So it's assessing it based on your child. Okay, what's going to be best for your child? Is their training program aligned with their age and their development stage? Okay, so please bear that in mind with all this. And there isn't a one size fits all. As I said earlier, we can't say for 5-year-olds you must do this, because every 5-year-old is different. Generally, we've seen kids react better, the younger kids react better to that, certainly when they're taking the first steps into football, to that more play-based, free play sessions with a lot of encouragement and so forth. But your child might be different, but please look at that objectively. Please don't base it on what you want for your child, base it on what's best for them. I think following on from that, a thing that we hammer a lot is that the importance of unstructured play, and this is for football, but for most walks of life as well when it comes to kids, having that time for just free play, creativeness, just them being kids, And that doesn't have to just be in a football context, but within a football context, that kickabout in the park or on the street or in the garden with their friends, or parents, that can be massive. It can be massive when it comes to developing that love of the game and improving things like creativity when they've not got anybody giving them instructions all the time. They're just allowed to just be creative and try things on their own terms. That can be massive. And so that's another question to ask yourself. Is your child getting enough time to enjoy football on their terms, not on your terms? So you might want them to be training at this place, this place, this place 4 or 5 times a week. Do they? Would they just prefer to have a couple of their friends around and play in the garden or go to the park or get out with you? That's the balance that you need to strike sometimes, and understand that it's not just play. Play is not a bad thing. It's sometimes getting rid of one session and adding in some unstructured play can be massive, absolutely massive for development and enjoyment. Don't disregard the power of unstructured play. So is your child getting enough time to enjoy their football? Is a big question to ask. I thought it'd be good just to maybe touch on a few signs of overtraining. So generally, this will apply to parents listening to this that have got their kid that's obsessed with football, that's doing all the sessions every week. But equally, if you're a parent listening to this where you've maybe put them into sessions and they're not, that it's not being led by them either. But there are some telltale signs when it comes to overtraining. So are they physically exhausted? Are they really tired all the time? Are they irritable? Have they got trouble sleeping? Maybe a lack of appetite? Has their performance level dropped on the pitch? We have seen this. We have seen this at our sessions where you can just tell with a kid they're physically and mentally not there, and when you get to the bottom of it, it's because they've done X amount of sessions consecutively over so many weeks that they're just burnt out completely. So please do watch for those signs, and that might be where you do need to rein it in. And that might be, if you've got a kid that's obsessed with football, wants to play all the time, it might be that you just drop a few sessions for a couple of weeks or have a week off. If you've got a kid that's not that motivated for football, it might just be that you have to say, right, I'm getting rid of the volume that we're doing because they're not that into it. I'm just going to focus maybe on one session because they quite like that one, and just let them play, let them be, and then hopefully that they'll get bitten by the football bug in the long term. Let's see. But it's sad sometimes because we obviously speak to many parents, and we had a parent recently that I've known very well now for a few years. I used to coach his boy one-to-ones. He was a fantastic footballer, probably still is, but he's now not playing. He's changed sport, and his dad thinks that's due to some of the environments that he trained in as a youngster, because he was very good, had a lot of natural ability, and worked really hard, loved his football, but he was maybe exposed to those pressurised environments too soon, and maybe on too much of a consistent basis. Thinking about, was he allowed to play with his friends at grassroots? All these sorts of things that add to the enjoyment of football. He was exposed to these intense environments, pressurised environments, trials and so forth for a long time. And his dad thinks that maybe he was just done with it, and it's sad. It's sad because that's a little boy that was a fantastic footballer, but is now just not that bothered for playing. And when maybe we'll never get to the bottom of it and never fully understand the reasons why. But speaking to his dad, he thinks that perhaps those environments on a consistent, maybe he just wasn't ready for it at that time. So it can be damaging longer term. We want kids playing football forever and getting the benefits from that, whether that's once a week or 5 times a week, but it needs to be led by them. And hopefully some of that stuff we spoke about today can help. My opinion on things has changed a little bit. I used to be very much, get a good few football sessions in, but try and get the multi-sport going and all that sort of stuff. But my opinion has changed a little bit, and certainly since I've had kids and watched their development, I had to think deeper about this. And it's okay, well, what if a kid doesn't want to do any other sports? Should they not? And they want to do that extra football session every week. Should we not do that because we think multi-sport's better? Well, no, actually. multi-sport is fine if your kid wants to do it, but just being physically active is a big thing. And so certainly with my daughters, I see it more as activities providing them with the physical well-being, the mental well-being of doing an activity, of doing a sport. And I think that if you've got your child who wants to do it and they are in the right environment, the right style of training, with the right ability level and all that good stuff that we speak about quite a lot, then I think fine, let them do it as long as it's being led by them. I just see it as an extra hour's physical activity and away from a screen, away from the other stuff that we don't really want our children exposed to too much. Again, we need to strike that balance. But if your child is wanting to do it, they don't want to do anything else, they want to play football, and it's one of those sessions that is beneficial to them based on their development stage, then yeah, crack on. But just keep assessing it. Okay, never just say do that indefinitely. Keep assessing it, and just watch. If they have a bad few sessions where they're not enjoying it anymore, it's becoming a chore, then yeah, maybe have that conversation. But hopefully this has helped some parents out there that just need that extra info around all this. And again, I will finish with saying this is not a one size fits all. Just be led by your child and their individual characteristics, I suppose. Thank you as always for listening. And as I say, anything specific to your children, certainly members at FootTech, but anyone listening to this, please just drop us a message. We're always happy to help if we can.